Thank you for joining me today on Thank you for joining me today on Thank you for joining me today on another episode of the Adaptive Man podcast. This is Michael Reed. I want to talk about the Madonna slash whore complex. So, what is the Madonna whore complex? How does it interlock with dating and relationships? And how do we start working on it both in dating and relationships? The Madonna whore complex, in very simple terms, is the inability as a man to view the woman in your life, your partner, to be able to exemplify both extremes of femininity, exemplifying a nurturing, motherly tenderness, as well as raw, erotic, seductive sexuality on two sides of the spectrum. This wording is not to say that any woman who is able to tap into that raw, erotic, seductive side of herself should be deemed a whore by any means, but it's just the terminology that is most commonly used when referencing this type of internal dynamic. So, in a nutshell, the Madonna is pure, moral, maternal, deserving of love and respect, but not sexual desire. Whereas the whore is sexual, seductive, but not really something you want to give your love and respect to the way you would to Madonna. This leads to a bit of a dichotomy and confusion in a lot of men. And for similar context, the bad boy, nice guy dichotomy might be seen as a rough equivalent of the men's side of this problem. A man that is too much of a people pleaser who has difficulty accessing their more dominant and assertive sides, while the bad boys are unable to demonstrate a depth of emotional connection and depth in favor of quick or short term eroticism and attraction. Many men who cheat sexually, sometimes often do, because of either a lack of accessing what they're subconsciously looking for in both realms of this, or they're afraid of communicating and exploring these parts of themselves with their significant others. Of course, there are other reasons for infidelity, but for now, we're just going to focus on this one topic. In the case of the dating scene, many women on dating apps seem to have a mix up of what foot they're putting forward and what type of response and interest they are receiving. Women who demonstrate, via the dating apps and photos in particular, an excessive lean towards that seductive, promiscuous side are essentially advertising this side of themselves to the bulk of the men on these apps. And given that men are extremely visual creatures, it's really easy for you as a man to over index and categorize subconsciously what type of person she may be, which can be difficult to see if she has a capacity for a Madonna side as well. On the contrary, women on these apps who post more modest and reserved appearances may subconsciously over index to these same men that they have a strong sense of a healthy public reservation, meaning they're not overtly flaunting their appearance or may have a stronger demonstration of a motherly, maternal, nurturing, or pure side, but may indicate to these men that they're unable to tap into that erotic, sexual, seductive side. What we then find as men on these apps is that when we're swiping right heavily on the women who are showing a lot of sexuality and seduction in their photos for sexual intent, but not for depth of emotional intent. And then by contrast, swiping right on the women who are showing modesty and a sense of maternal energy, but worried there is a lack of depth in sexuality and eroticism within these types. Sometimes even in relationships. You might find yourself as a man having difficulty in bringing forth the full depth of your sexual interests and your sexuality to your partner if there is a subconscious fear of this almost poisoning or tarnishing that image you have of her as the Madonna. But the reality is that many of the women out there, especially on dating apps, who do demonstrate a healthy degree of modesty on the apps, and that you might not find immediately interesting or worth your time or subconsciously capable of that degree of healthy sexuality and depth, are much more capable of and willing to engage in that behavior in the context of a long-term committed relationship, if that's what you're looking for. So in this case, for things like finding someone on a dating app, working through this complex means trying to really filter out whether the women you find yourself constantly or consistently attracted to and trying to engage with in these apps are in which camp, the Madonna camp or the horror camp. If you're looking for something long term, it's important to keep in the back of your mind the idea that many women who you might be connecting with on these apps who have a much more modest take on their profiles likely do have a stronger capacity for that darker side that you will eventually want to bring forward, but that her modesty up front does not automatically discount her from being able to access and engage in tapping into that more raw and sexual side of the human experience. And if you are in a committed relationship and struggling with this, open communication is paramount to finding out how much more of your internal desires and wants and needs are able to be brought to the table in a healthy and enjoyable way. There's nothing wrong with having sexual wants and needs, but it helps no one if you don't at least discuss them and bring it up. You're human, after all. So let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Follow or subscribe for more content, and shoot me a message if there's any other topics you'd like to see discussed. Until next time, this is Michael Reed, signing off.